It is a WRAL weather alert day, and I'm tracking a plume of tropical moisture that's pushing up into the Triangle area. I'll show you how much rain we could expect to see just in the next 30 minutes.
And we're also tracking roads across our viewing area. We'll show you conditions over the next hour from the WRAL Storm Tracker.
And breaking news, we're following the largest pro-Biden super PAC is reportedly freezing $90 million in donations. Ken Smith is following this breaking news story in the WRAL Live Center.
Today is a WRAL weather alert day for the risk of flooding. As you can see, we have the WRAL Storm Tracker on the roads to help keep you safe. Good afternoon. I'm Michelle McConaughey in for an HU.
And I'm Jeff Hogan. Thanks for joining us this noon. This morning, we saw up to 3 inches of rain in parts of our viewing area. We have team coverage of this severe weather, but we begin with WRAL's Elizabeth Gardner in the Severe Weather Center right now with how much more rain is headed our way this afternoon, Elizabeth.
We have a big surge of moisture that's coming up out of the tropics right now across Fayetteville and right into the southern part of Wake County. That will continue to move all the way up toward the Virginia line, and it's not likely to move anywhere very quickly. So this line is going to produce some heavy rain over the next half an hour, potentially up to 2 or 3 hours, unless we start to see it dissipating a little bit. But we were expecting to see another plume of moisture coming through this afternoon. And here it comes. Let's zoom in here from Lillington to Angier to Fuquay Varina to Holly Springs. We're seeing it coming down fairly heavily right now with a lot of lightning associated with it. We saw the same thing this morning, some plumes of moisture coming up with a lot of lightning. So not only is it a flooding issue, but you just need to be careful being outside with the lightning. Brand new, we do have a new flood advisory that's been issued. We have a flood watch, but we also have an advisory showing that we could end up with some minor flooding up until around 3:45. If the rain continues to come down more heavily, the Weather Service may issue a flash flood warning, but right now it's an advisory. We have another one of those north and east of Roanoke Rapids. So let's take a look at what's happening right now. We have meteorologist Amy Wilmoth here in the Storm Tracker. She is coming around the Beltline where some of that rain is about to become heavy. What's it looking like out there, Amy?
Yeah, Elizabeth, so we are in the flood advisory area in Wake County on 40 East in Cary, right at the Carytown Boulevard exit. And we're out here monitoring the roads. I haven't seen any major problems in Wake County just yet. The National Weather Service kind of issued this flood advisory preemptively because we had so much heavy rain in Harnett and Cumberland County that's now starting to move into Wake County. And we're just starting to get into some of that heavy rain. You can probably see it pretty good now with our windshield wipers going, a lot of cars on the roads. We were in Durham County just a short time ago because first they issued a flood advisory for Durham County. There was some ponding on the roads. We didn't see any accidents or any major flooding, just some ponding on the side of the roads. So far, so good, but we still have the heavy rain that's just now making its way into Wake County. We're going to stay out here on the roads and monitor the roads in Wake County throughout this newscast, and we'll bring you any updates as needed. Live in the WRAL Storm Tracker, I'm meteorologist Amy Wilmoth.
And live here in the WRAL Live Center, we're tracking road conditions for you. Right now, we're not picking up any major problems, as Amy just mentioned, either. We're seeing a bit of a slowdown on these eastbound lanes there in the Durham area, but the Beltline right now is looking free and clear and delay-free this noon hour. Let's look at the northern side of the Beltline. This is our camera from I-440 and Lake Boone Trail. You can see the gleam of the wet road conditions there, but traffic is moving along at a steady clip. On the southern side of the Beltline, you can see traffic has picked up quite a bit there, but the traffic is moving nicely in both directions. The eastbound lanes, if you're heading toward the beach this noon hour, you've got clear sailing, and those westbound lanes are heading away from us. These couple of incidents right now are just on local roads, not really affecting your commute at this noon hour.
Fayetteville police have arrested an 83-year-old man and charged him with murdering his wife. WRAL's Noah Klein is here now with what we know about this rare charge for a man that age.
Jeff, Fayetteville police tell us they are getting ready to release some new information about this case. Here's what we know right now. 83-year-old Leslie Brewer in the Cumberland County Detention Center. He's charged with first-degree murder for the death of Betsy Brewer. We checked, and marriage records show the two were married for more than 60 years. Take a look at video here from the home that authorities believe the crime happened at and where officers arrested Leslie Brewer. This is Pleasant Loop over in Fayetteville. Those documents say the crime happened on Wednesday. That's a day before Brewer was arrested. He's currently being held in the detention center with no bond. Court, meanwhile, scheduled for today at 2:30. That's according to paperwork. We'll keep an eye on this case as it develops.
Raleigh firefighters are searching for the cause of an apartment fire near NC State. It happened at the Centennial Lofts on Crest Road just after 1 a.m. One unit has fire damage. 3 others have smoke damage. One person was displaced there, but no one was hurt.
If you're an AT&T customer, it's possible that some of your information was stolen. WRAL's Chris Lovingood joins us now in studio. Chris, this is a massive data breach.
Oh, it is a big one, Michelle. We are talking about millions of people who use this service. The company confirmed, quote, nearly all of its customers are affected, including both landlines and cell phone customers. Hackers reportedly stole 6 months worth of calls and text message records, and these are records that would be from May 1st through October 31st of 2022. But you should know the content of those calls and messages, they weren't stolen. It's the phone numbers that were compromised. Now, for perspective, Michelle, AT&T has nearly 130 million devices using its service. The company points out, no, customer names were not included in the data, but you find someone's number and you could likely find a name. I'm Chris Lovingood, WRAL News.
We're now hearing from Advance Auto Parts regarding a lawsuit over hacked information. Back in May, several companies were targeted by a cloud storage and warehousing vendor. The company says it launched an investigation and notified authorities, but customers don't think they did enough to protect 380 million customer profiles. In response, Advance says it will notify customers if their personal information was affected by this and provide access to complimentary credit monitoring and also identity theft protections.
There's major reaction coming in after President Biden's high-stakes news conference. NBC's Peter Alexander explains how the latest public gaffes could impact his decision about the future of his candidacy.
This morning, reaction pouring in from President Biden's doubters and defenders following that nearly hour-long news conference in which he insisted he can do the job for another 4 years.
I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started.
While also saying other Democrats could win the election.
But there are other people who could beat Trump too. But it's awful start from scratch.
The president pressed on whether he would get out of the race if his team told him Kamala Harris was more likely to beat Donald Trump.
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win. Me. No one's saying that. No poll says that.
But with anxious Democrats and eager Republicans watching every word with increased scrutiny on the president's abilities, his answer to the very first question drawing attention when he misspoke.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
Former President Trump and his allies immediately seizing on that mistake.
Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
It came after a similar misstep earlier in the day while introducing Ukrainian President Zelensky. But that time, he caught it.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
It's Peter Alexander reporting. This morning on Today, Congressman James Clyburn, one of the president's strongest allies, said the conversation should focus on the record of the administration and on the alternative in this election.
And Jeff, happening now in the WRAL Live Center, more political fallout for the president this noon hour. The New York Times now reporting mega donors are set to be freezing about $90 million pledged to the largest super PAC supporting the president if he remains in the race. This is according to 2 people familiar with that conversation. The super PAC we're talking about is called Future Forward. Of course, after his gaffes last night, you just heard them there in that report. 3 more Democrats are calling for Biden to end his reelection bid. That's more than a dozen Democrats now calling for the president to step down. And as this quick reminder, during last night's press conference, Biden called Vice President Harris Vice President Trump. He also referred to the Ukrainian president as President Putin. Of course, we all know President Putin is the president of Russia. We will continue to follow this story right here in the WRAL Live Center.
Thanks, Ken. And former First Lady Melania Trump is planning to attend the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee next week, but it's unclear if she will speak on stage during the formal program. Melania Trump has only made 2 public campaign-related appearances in this 2024 presidential race. She notably did not attend any of her husband's court appearances in New York for his hush money trial. Trump campaign advisors say the former First Lady is supportive of her husband and his political ambitions. WRAL will be covering covering the Republican National Convention in our late newscasts beginning Monday.
Unexpected bad news for inflation. Wholesale prices rose in June to their highest rate since March of last year. The Producer Price Index measures the average price businesses pay to suppliers, and then that's passed on to us, the consumers. The news comes one day after the government announced consumer prices declined on a monthly basis for the first time in 4 years. Despite the higher than expected PPI number, a chief investment officer says he believes rate cuts are still on the table for September.
In less than an hour, Shaw University will host a forum to highlight efforts to improve economic opportunities for communities of color. Governor Roy Cooper and local leaders will join members of the Biden administration for the forum. The forum will also spotlight local success stories and celebrate Raleigh's history as home to one of the 19 original freedmen banks, which gave newly emancipated Black Americans financial tools after the Civil War. The forum starts at 1 o'clock this afternoon in Shaw's SD Hall.
Next at noon, a Chicago woman is still missing after a month in the Bahamas. The emotional birthday celebration her family held for her while looking for answers.
Also, the James Webb Telescope provides another galactic gem, the picture NASA released to celebrate its 2-year anniversary.
Plus, Medicaid expansion in North Carolina hits a major milestone. At 12:30, we'll have a live report as 500,000 people have now signed up for the program.
We now have a flash flood warning for parts of the viewing area. You may have just seen that EAS alert on your phone. This is where it encompasses almost all of Wake County, certainly the central and western part, southern part of Wake County, and then down into Harnett County and a little sliver of Johnston County. This is in effect until 3:15. And about 10 minutes ago at the top of the newscast, we were talking about this plume of moisture that's coming up across this area. It is going to continue to push northward, so that warning may be extended over the next 30 minutes or so. We could see as much as 3+ inches of rain in this area, and I'll walk you through the timeline for the rest of the afternoon coming up.
And happening now in the WRAL Live Center, Elizabeth, we've got one of those waves that you've been talking about since we've been on the air this morning. You've always said that it'll come in waves. We're experiencing one of those waves right now in the southern part of the Beltline. This is the I-40 and Lake Wheeler Road camera. You can see all this traffic moving in both directions, moving at a safe clip, but the rain is really coming down very much so. On the north side of the Beltline, a different scene. It's not raining as hard, but traffic is moving. That outside lane is always a troubled spot because it's one lane trying to get onto Wade Avenue onto I-40 West. So keep that in mind if you're getting ready to head out this morning. Taking a live look at our sensors right now, not seeing any major backups, just a few brake tapping going on in parts of the Beltline and, of course, I-40 East as well.
It's been 4 weeks since a Chicago woman disappeared during a yoga retreat in the Bahamas. Yesterday, family and friends of Taylor Casey gathered on what would have been her 42nd birthday to push for answers.
The agony is practically killing me. And not just me, your whole family, your friends, and all of your associates.
Casey's mother fought back tears as she read a letter to her missing daughter. People who love and miss Taylor stood in support and solidarity, calling for more resources and help to find her. So far, the Royal Bahamas Police Search has offered very few answers. Recently, the officer in charge of Taylor's case was suspended.
It's been 3 weeks since Taylor's been missing. And one thing is abundantly clear. The only reason why anything is happening is because we're making it happen.
A representative from the Chicago mayor's office vowed to offer resources to help find Taylor, a Black transgender woman. Her family fears her identity may have something to do with a lack of urgency in this investigation.
A Florida woman is home for the first time since April after being arrested in Turks and Caicos for having ammunition in her luggage. Sharita Greer was overcome with emotion after landing in Orlando Thursday night. She was taken into custody in May after airport security found 2 bullets in her bag. A judge issued a 23-week suspended sentence and fined Greer $1,500. Right now, let's get over to Elizabeth Gardner in the WRAL Severe Weather Center. That flash flood warning is out there.
And we have this plume of moisture that's coming out of the tropics, dumping heavy rain. This is along with the rain that we've seen already today, which has been pretty extensive in parts of the western part of our viewing area. So this flash flood warning expires at 3:15. So we have a couple of hours left on this, and we'll continue to see this moisture surging northward. I wouldn't be surprised if the Weather Service extends that on up northward, potentially into parts of Durham and Granville County. Rain coming down very heavily in this area. We'll widen out, kind of start from scratch with the wide view. We've got this plume of moisture coming up through Cumberland County, Harnett County, into Wake County, and it will continue to travel northward. And it's not likely to move very quickly. And so this is where we get into trouble. If we have a front, say, coming through and it moves across the area, that bit of rain just doesn't have enough time to produce a lot of rain in one particular spot. But when we see it like this, it just continues to move across the same area, which is what happened earlier this morning back here across, say, Chatham County. That's when we start to see those rainfall totals really adding up. So easily we could see as much as 3 inches or more across this area that's warned. And then again, as it moves northward, we could see the same thing. So coming down very heavily in Apex right now, Holly Springs, we're seeing heavy rain right now inside the Beltline and Raleigh, Fuquay Varina and Anger will head down to the south and follow it here too, from Anger down to Wade to Fayetteville, just to the west of Dunn. This whole band of rain continues to move northward. And it's not just the rain, lots of lightning as well, which can also be very dangerous. So if you have to be out, be very careful. We do have a flood advisory that's in effect up here around Roanoke Rapids, just to the north of Roanoke Rapids as well. Meteorologist Amy Wilmoth is out in the storm tracker, and she is just outside of this very heavy band of rain. We're going to take a look at the picture of what's happening right there. And you can see, even though she's not in that heaviest band, boy, you can see that rainfall coming down very heavily as she's traveling there along the Beltline this afternoon. So it's one of those situations, especially in the next hour to 2 hours, if you don't have to be out on the roads where all this heavy rain is falling, don't. Just take it easy. And, hopefully a little later this afternoon, there'll be some breaks in this heavy rain. Let's go back and take another look here at where we are in terms of how much rain we've seen. Just south of Graham, just north of, say, Siler City, we've seen almost 4 inches of rain just north of Siler City there. Closer to town, about 3 inches. Around Wilson, we've had up to 2 inches. Rocky Mount, around 2 inches. We're going to really start to see some of these totals here from Anger to Fuquay and on up into Wake County, starting to add up very quickly. Around Henderson, almost 2 inches, about 2.5 inches in Roanoke Rapids. So a lot of the viewing area has seen anywhere from 1 to 2 inches already. We do have that flood watch that's in effect for the rest of the day. We're going to see more of this through the afternoon. We do have a level 2 flood risk, and you can see why now. Watch this band here on Futurecast. It does potentially start to slide a little bit closer to the I-95 corridor, but more rain may develop back to the west as we get into the evening commute. And it doesn't look like this is going to taper off until, say, close to midnight. Look at this rain coming down in Apex. You really can hardly see down Salem Street. It's coming down so heavily. Our temperature is 77, our dew point 74. Obviously, with this kind of rain, temperatures are cooler today, looking at low to mid 80s. But we look at the weekend ahead, starting tomorrow, we're back into some of that high heat, 99 on Saturday and 103 on Sunday. We could hit 101 on Tuesday, and we'll touch on that a little bit more coming up. We'll check back in with you coming up in about 10 minutes as we have this flood warning in effect for parts of the Triangle.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. Coming up today on WRAL News at 4, we'll A government agency is warning drivers who purchased a used vehicle to get their airbags checked. The warning comes after cheap, substandard replacement airbag inflators were tied to 3 deaths and 2 life-altering injuries in the past year. The faulty airbag parts are typically imported and don't adhere to quality standards. The airbags may deploy partially or too slowly, or send large metal fragments into a driver or passenger's chest, neck, eyes, and face.
NASA is celebrating the 2-year anniversary of the James Webb Telescope in dramatic fashion with new release of this vivid new photo. The image shows a pair of intertwined galaxies, which NASA calls the penguin and the egg. The galaxies first passed each other tens of millions of years ago, causing the new star formation you see within the penguin. NASA says the galaxies are about the same mass, which is why one hasn't consumed the other. The $10 billion James Webb Telescope has first started taking these images in July of 2022. NASA's discovered more fascinating features about a giant planet located 64 light years away from Earth. Scientists already knew about the planet's sizzling temperatures, screaming winds, and sideways rain made of glass-like particles. But now they've discovered it also smells like rotten eggs. That's because of a sulfuric gas found in the planet's atmosphere. Scientists say the discovery will help them better understand what exoplanets are made of and how they came to be.
Well, this may come as no surprise to people in our viewing area. This year's summer heat is breaking records. June marked the 13th consecutive month to break a global heat record. Scientists say heat waves are becoming the new normal. June was the second warmest in NOAA's 130-year record. Last month ranked in the top 10 warmest Junes on record for 20 states. And just ahead, the breakdown of nearly 600 athletes in the Olympics. Ages 16 to 60 years old, 32 of them being teens. There are more women than men.
And we're just 2 weeks away from the Olympics as well. Paris getting ramped up for all this, the swimming phenomenon. Katie Ledecky explains why the time between trails and the games is key to her success.
And here are your winning lottery numbers. We'll be right back.
Thanks for staying with us this half hour. Be careful out there on the roads this lunch hour. Pockets of heavy rain are creating a flood risk all across our viewing area.
That's why today is the WRAL Weather Alert Day. We have the storm tracker on the roads, keeping an eye on conditions. But we begin with Elizabeth Gardner in the WRAL Severe Weather Center with a look at the accumulation so far.
And we can see another 1 to 3 inches of rain, especially in this warned area. This is where we have a flash flood warning. You might have seen the EAS warning come across on your phone if you live in this area. The flash flood warning expires at 3:15, so we still have a long way to go on this. And again, an additional 1 to 3 inches of rain in this area that had already seen at least an inch. And so we could be talking about some totals in the 4-inch range, which definitely can cause some problems with flooding. We'll back off, and you can see we have this flow of tropical moisture coming up through Fayetteville and all the way up through Harnett County into Wake County. That will continue to lift northward into Durham and into Granville counties as well. So we might see that warning expanded a little farther to the north. Right now, we're looking at heavy rain in Fuquay Varina, Holly Springs, Apex, pushing into Morrisville. It's a little lighter in Wendell and Zebulon, but it's possible that it would continue to spread off to the east a little bit more. We also have a flood advisory in effect for this really entire area where we have that rain falling until 3:45. The warning is in effect for parts of Wake County and Harnett County, where we could see just a lot of heavy rain with that plume of moisture coming up from the tropics. Another flood advisory over there around Roanoke Rapids. We take a look at where meteorologist Amy Wilmoth is. She's way up there on the Beltline. And boy, we've been looking at some of your shots there just a minute ago, just really coming down.
It is, Elizabeth. This is the heaviest rain that we've been in so far today, really starting to pick up over the western half of Wake County. I'll show you the road here. We are on the Beltline. We're headed west toward the Apex area where it's really coming down between us and Apex. Very, very heavy rain. As Elizabeth mentioned, we have this plume of moisture coming in from the southeast, just a ton of moisture over our area. And that means heavy rain on and off throughout the entire day. Finally, later tonight, we'll have more of a southwesterly flow. That's a drier flow, so hopefully we'll have some improvements later on. But we still have hours to go with heavy rain possible throughout the rest of the day. The flash flood watch in effect until midnight tonight. So again, we're in some pretty heavy traffic now on the Beltline. Very heavy rain coming down here. We'll be sure to show you more shots from the WRAL Storm Tracker throughout the noon newscast. Back to you.
And boy, Amy, I can tell you don't want to be out there unless you absolutely have to. So thanks for being out there. Stay safe. And that should be a note to you. If you don't have to be out right now, especially around the Triangle area, you want to stay in until we see this rain beginning to taper off a little bit. So far, just in the last hour, we've seen as much as 2 inches in southern Wake County and about 1 3/4 inches there in the northern part of Harnett County as this next plume is moving through. The flood watch is in effect for the rest of the day today, and easily 1.5 to 3 inches of rain, but it's in pockets, and so everybody's not going to see it at the same time. So we will continue to have this threat through the remainder of the day. By the time we get to the evening, that threat begins to taper off just a little bit, and we'll talk more about what happens once all this moves out coming up.
And we continue to check road conditions here in the WRAL Lives, and let's get right to the major congestion shaping up on this side of the belt line. We're talking, this is our camera from I-40 and Lake Wheeler Road. You can see the westbound lanes, a heavy congestion there because of the rain that's coming down. Those of you heading to the beach, getting an early start this noon hour, you're in the eastbound lanes. Traffic is moving along at a safe clip at this hour, but keep in mind that westbound lanes of I-40 really congested at this noon hour. On the northern side of the Beltline, this is our camera at I-440 and Lake Boone Trail. The inner lanes are moving along nicely, but that's the outer lane that's trying to get onto Wade Avenue, which will eventually get onto I-40 westbound. Taking a look at our live sensors this morning, US 1 north-south just having a bit of an issue this noon hour. You can see the slowdowns that's going in both directions, and these are the slowdowns we've been showing you right there on the Beltline. We'll continue to monitor these road conditions here in the WRAL Live Center.
Governor Roy Cooper announced this morning the state has hit a major milestone for Medicaid expansion. 500,000 people who didn't have health care coverage before are now signed up under Medicaid. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie joins us live from downtown Raleigh with what this means for the state. Laura.
You know, it's only been 7 months since Medicaid expansion was enacted.
As you can see with this live look in Sanford this noon hour, the rain is not just here around the Triangle, it's spread to the Sandhills as well. Much of our viewing area is seeing this as you watch WRAL News, available on Spectrum and the WRAL app on your TV or streaming device.
We're covering Wake County, and you have the chance today to snag some great deals on kids' toys, clothing, and more just in time for the new school year.
Yes, the Kids Exchange Consignment Sale. It's in progress right now at the State Fairgrounds in Raleigh. WRAL's Kelsey Coffey shows us how some of the parents can save money on essentials.
Before you decide to come to the Kids Exchange this week, it's probably a good idea to make a list and have a plan, because honestly, this can be pretty overwhelming. More than 700 tables of kids items, but this is a way to check it out. So you can easily look up the item locator here as soon as you walk in the door. That way you can research exactly what you need. So they have everything from baby items here all the way to clothes for older elementary school students. You can see dozens of shoppers lined up waiting for the sale to begin today. Now, this sale is an easy one-stop shop for so many back-to-school items. A new survey shows more than a third of parents are setting a budget for back-to-school shopping this year. As prices keep going up, big bargains like the Kids Exchange can help families save.
It is absolutely a blessing, and as foster parents and a pregnant woman, just being able to come in and be able to buy a lot of stuff that in a store we just wouldn't be able to afford.
The Kids Exchange is open today until 6 o'clock. You can also come back and shop tomorrow and Sunday. And remember, Sunday, everything will be half price. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News in Raleigh.
From searing temperatures to destructive storms and heavy flooding, extreme weather events are becoming more frequent in the U.S.
And some of these events often not only impact people, but their pets. How emergency responders have adapted to help both humans and their four-legged friends.
Also ahead, when the world population is now expected to peak, how many people that will be, and why the population will start to fall after that.
Recent storms, floods, and heat affecting the U.S. aren't just hard on people, they are harsh also on pets.
Yeah, Amy Kiley looks at how both are enduring the latest weather woes.
Go on.
People and pets are suffering from the latest round of severe weather.
Most western states have heat alerts again today. Las Vegas is on a record hot streak, but not the gambling kind. Reno, Nevada has new signs urging pet owners to beware of hot surfaces.
What we can do is we can put our hands or our feet on the pavement for about 7 seconds.
The city says dogs might need booties or to stick to shade and grass for now.
If it's hot for us, it's going to be really hot for them too.
Some Houston area homes and businesses still lack power due to WRAL, and the city has a heat advisory today. That's dangerous for both humans and their furry friends.
There's been lots of stories on social media about how people are trying to keep their pets cool during this moment of no power and storm cleanup.
The National Weather Service confirms multiple tornadoes hit New York Wednesday, affecting animals and damaging property. In Vermont,
so this whole street within an hour just flooded.
Officials say rescuers just saved more than 100 people and at least 15 dogs or cats from floods. This feed store there lost power.
Feed's got to roll out here every day or animals are going to go hungry, so we have really no choice but to get power back.
Amy Kiley reporting there, and yeah, it's changed my life because the dog, it's torture to take him outside. It's mean to take him outside and run him a little bit, but he's climbing the walls.
Oh, and she was talking about the booties too. I know some people put the booties on their dogs.
I'm not going to shame him into booties. No, it's not happening.
All right, well, if you're heading outside today, maybe the raincoat for the dog, because I mean, the rain's really coming down, Elizabeth.
Really is. That's a live look at our storm tracker. Of course, Amy Wilmoth is there. We're going to take a closer look at that in just a few minutes. But in case you're just checking in with us, you may have seen the alert come down now about 40 minutes ago, 35, 40 minutes ago. A flash flood warning. It's in effect for parts of Wake County and down into Harnett County. I wouldn't be surprised if you look over here to the west, definitely down towards Sanford and in the eastern part of Chatham County. There's a lot of heavy rain falling there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Weather Service expand that possibly to the west or even to the north as this plume of moisture continues to push north as well. So we could see another 1 to 3 inches of rainfall fall in this region. And there is an expanded flood advisory. That's going to be a step down level from a flash flood warning. So really any place that's highlighted there has the potential for some flooding. It's just a little more likely from, say, Harnett County on up into Wake County. It's more of an emergency where we've had so much rain that we could have a flash flood. A flood advisory, in effect, still up around Roanoke Rapids into Emporia, Virginia as well. Let's take a look at the big picture. We have a plume of moisture that's coming up from the south. We've had this set up earlier this morning. It was back across the western part of Chatham County on up toward Danville. We saw some heavy rain there, 2 to 3 inches. So we may see a repeat of that here. Models want to show that developing again along the I-95 corridor. This particular pattern isn't a normal pattern where we have a front that comes through and the rain pushes through. This is more of a stationary pattern. We have a stationary front that's sitting here across the viewing area and a low to the south that's adding moisture to that stationary front. And it's very tropical in nature as well. So that's where we're seeing some of these heavy downpours. And look at that, from Chapel Hill to Morrisville to Apex to Holly Springs to Fuquay-Varina to Anger, back over toward Pittsboro, Sanford, and all of this, you can see it streaming northward. So Durham, you're next for some of that heavy rain to work into your area. Let's take another look at where the storm tracker is. Storm tracker's down US Highway 1 headed towards Sanford. We'll take another look at some of that heavy rain. Boy, Amy, the windshield wipers are really moving fast. Amy just texted me a little while ago and said she saw a spin out there on US 1. And so definitely it's causing some accidents out there. Again, you want to stay in and not be out on the roads if you can at all help it for the next few hours before, until this starts to taper off a little bit. Let's talk about how much rainfall we've seen just in this area where the warning is. Just in the last 30 minutes or so, look at that. We just jumped up to about 2 inches near Fuquay-Varina. It's about 2 inches in Anger. And look at this down here, almost 3 inches. That's right there around Lillington, 2.5 in Wade, 2 inches down towards Stedman, just to the east of Fayetteville. So that rain is really adding up quickly, which is why we have the warning in place. I hate to keep coming back to Apex, but you look at Apex. Apex is just right in the middle of this very, very heavy band of rain. You can really see what that looks like. A flood watch is in effect expect for the rest of the day, again, up to 3 more inches potentially. We have that stationary front I was talking about, and there's the low that's feeding all that moisture in to that boundary, creating all this heavy rain. It doesn't look like it stops anytime soon. There's 5 o'clock still with widespread rain. The evening commute's going to be a real mess for us. Finally, as we get closer to midnight, it begins to taper off, but still could be an isolated shower or thunderstorm first thing on Saturday morning. After that, we should clear out. The big story for the weekend is back to the heat again. 91 Saturday, 96 on Sunday with the heat index up near triple digits. But of course, we're going to continue to follow this. If you stick with us, we're going to have more live updates coming up through the 1 o'clock hour.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It's not because of this weather, but a lot of folks are looking for ways to live longer. Coming up, we will tell you about one easy one.
And you don't have to spend money or change your diet to do it. We'll explain after the break.
And just now, the National Weather Service expanded that flash flood warning to include parts of Durham County and Orange County, including the cities of Durham and Chapel Hill, up until 4 o'clock. We could have more heavy rain here. The main thing that you want to watch for is water on the roads. Turn around and head the other way if you have water covering the roads. You can join us on NBC Daily. We'll have more live updates through the 1 o'clock hour.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And as we wrap things up, here's a look at our other headlines we're following today.
An 83-year-old man is facing murder charges in Cumberland County. It's according to an arrest report. Leslie Brewer was taken into custody yesterday on Pleasant Loop in Fayetteville. Documents show the victim is Brewer's wife of 60 years, Betsy Craven Brewer. Now, he is being held without bond right now. Court is scheduled for today, 2:30, according to the arrest paperwork.
AT&T reports nearly all of its users were exposed to a massive data breach in 2022. The company says the breach happened because of an illegal download of a third-party cloud platform. The data breach reportedly includes calls and text messages history of nearly all of its users. AT&T listed approximately 110 million wireless subscribers as the end of 2022.
The world's population may peak before the end of the century. A newly released report from the United Nations predicts the global population is expected to surpass 10 billion people around 2080. Then after that, the global population will begin to fall. The report says it's partly because fertility rates around the world are dropping quicker than expected. More than 60 countries and territories have already peaked in population, including Italy, Japan, Russia, and China.
If you want to live longer, try appreciating the little things in life. That's the finding of a new study. Nearly 50,000 women between the ages of 69 and 96 who completed a gratitude questionnaire. And when the researchers reviewed the data 3 years later, they found the women who had the highest levels of gratitude experienced a 9% lower risk of death of any cause, including cardiovascular disease and cancer. This is the first report to examine the effects of gratefulness on longevity.
Circle of Life is bringing a classic Disney musical back to the big screen. Today, The Lion King will be back in theaters to celebrate its 30th anniversary. The movie premiered in 1994. The original voice cast included Matthew Broderick, Jeremy Irons, and James Earl Jones. The film featured songs by Elton John and Tim Rice, including Can You Feel the Love Tonight, which won an Academy Award. There are several theaters showing Lion King today in our area.
Such a classic. I love that movie. All right, our pet of the day absolutely loves the great outdoors. Meet Frazier. Because he is deaf, the staff has been teaching him his commands via sign language. He is catching on pretty quickly, but will need a family to dedicate themselves to continuing this training. He loves to be outside and play fetch and would be a great family pet. Please make an appointment to visit at spcawake.org/adopt.
Cute one. Coming up on WRAL News at 4, a former addict shares his story of how a Raleigh substance abuse clinic saved his life. We'll also explain the changes that are needed in order to help others as the opioid pandemic rages on.
And we'll continue to follow our breaking news regarding the weather out there. A lot of people taking it slow today because of all that heavy rain.
Certainly, yeah, and that's why we'll have complete coverage here coming up in the next hour with live updates as you watch NBC News Daily.
Yeah, the WRAL storm tracker out on the road. We will have more on that coming up at 4 o'clock. But NBC News Daily is next on WRAL. Your next local news update is in 30 minutes.
Enjoy this live look, especially if you are on the inside somewhere. You can get breaking news updates anytime with this weather rolling through with our WRAL News app. Have a great day. Be safe out there. Have a good weekend.
Stay safe with the latest WRAL Weather Alert Day info. Get up-to-the-minute weather and traffic conditions when you get in your car. In Raleigh on 99.3 FM, in Durham 96.5 FM, and everywhere on 101.5 HD3.